This demonstration today is serving notice on the Nazis that they are not going to get away with their designs. They believe the tide is with them. We have a lesson for them. The tide is with us. We are the great majority, and we are determined that Nazism, in the form of Tommy Robinson and his supporters, will not get a toehold in this country.
So, did you hear the one about the fascists who went to trash a bookshop and ended up massively boosting sales and restarting a movement? I'm so confused right now. I don't know what that... But I've been thinking about this a lot over the last week, and I reckon I know what happened. And here it is, okay? I reckon the call came out from fascist headquarters. I'm imagining a table in Wetherspoons, slightly sticky table in Wetherspoons. And that their leader, whoever that may be, said, all right lads, I've got a mission for you. You're going into a bookshop. A pause there, I think, while they looked up bookshop. And what you're going to do is you're going to really turn it over. But it was a bad line, and what they thought that they said was, you're going to boost turnover. Such an easy mistake to make. Bless them.
Hello, I want to thank everybody for being here, but I want to thank Bookmarks for standing up and staying open, and we're here in solidarity because we refuse to be intimidated. I have to be clear, when I saw the master race come in, right, if that is the master race, right, badly dressed, caps, whatever it is, I was thinking we've got a chance. And then became the question of, do you mean, listen to people like Boris Johnson, who looks like a cross. He's talking about how people look, how Muslim women look. And he looks like a cross between a Shetland pony and Moby Dick. You look at the state of the guy and you think to yourself, why would you talk about anybody's appearance? Why? But the problem is, the truth of it is, this is why it's really dangerous. Because he was a former foreign secretary. And sadly, I'm old enough. This is the year of the Rivers of Blood speech that was made by Enoch Powell. And Paul Foote, whose book's inside there, he said this. He said in that book, he said that when Enoch Powell made his speech, I tell you, in my family, I tell you what happened when Enoch Powell made his speech. My aunt was on her way to St Mary's Hospital, and she was beaten up. She was a nurse, right? I got up at a meeting once when a male there, and I said I was glad that Enoch Powell was dead. That was the only good thing that Enoch Powell did, right? And the reason why it's important is racist talk costs lives. Racist talk costs lives. I've got two friends here, Maz Salim and Nail Ashraf, who are both Muslim women. The reason why I want to highlight this and why it's important we stand out against this, Maz's father was murdered by a neo-Nazi inside Birmingham. He was stabbed, he was an 82-year-old grandfather, and he was stabbed in the back. And I remember at the time, people saying it came out of nowhere. I tell you where it came out of. It came out of the marches of the English Defence League. That's where it came out of. It's not true that it doesn't have an effect on people's lives. And Layla was sitting in Hammersmith in a fish and chip shop. How can you get more British than eating in a fish and chip shop? Except for it's brought to us by Portuguese Jews. You know, if you get to say that. And drinking a nice cup of tea. That's more English, except for it came from India. Do you mean the whole history of that has been made up and covered up? And that's when people say make Britain great again. What are they really talking about? What's not great about Britain? What's not great about the NHS? What's not great about black and white, Muslim, Jew, gay, straight, trans people coming together? Because when Rod Liddell writes inside, he writes inside The Spectator. Read what he says inside The Spectator. You know what he said? He said that Boris Johnson was not Islamophobic enough. That's what he said. He said the real danger is not Islamophobic enough. And jokes aside, I have never seen anything like this before. I grew up, there's Umesh Desai there, and I was talking to him about growing up in the 70s in East London. And I remember him saying, and we said, we could never go to Liverpool Street. If anybody said they went to Liverpool Street and you were black or Muslim, you called them a liar. Do you mean? It's like they said they played football for West Ham. You're a liar. Right? You never went there. Because you couldn't go there. Because people wouldn't let you go there. And then what happened? I tell you what happened. The Anti-Nazi League came along. And I remember the first march I went to was on Wood Green. And you know who came with me? Jeremy Corbyn. Jeremy Corbyn. And I tell you why he came there. I tell you why he came there. He said, at the time, it was about anti-Semitism and the link between anti-Semitism and racism, which was at that time being directed against Afro-Caribbeans and other people. I've been told to sum up. Just get going. I'm going to shut up because everybody has to do this. But the reason why I'm saying this is important is because we've had the Anti-Nazi League. We've built UAF. We've built Stand Up to Racism. I remember Nick Griffin coming and crying in Barking and Dagenham when he was defeated, and I was so glad to watch his tears. But I tell you what the danger is. I was outside the court when Tommy Robinson was released, and I've never seen the size of Nazis that there were. There were 15,000 on those demonstrations. They're the biggest that they've ever been. We need a response. Now, I think the question isn't about reinventing what we've already got. I think we have a tradition. It's called the United Front. Trotsky writes about it inside the bookshop. Read the history of it. We are going to launch, we're going to launch a unity statement. Part of that unity statement is to make sure that we have a mass movement. I remember the carnival that we had in Victoria Park, and we had the carnival also afterwards when people in Griffin. We're going to launch 3 of those big ones coming up this year.
People are shocked at what the far right and the racist right are now doing in this country. 3 or 4 weeks ago, on July the 14th, they attacked the Assistant General Secretary of the RMT, the Rail Union, Steve Headley. Last week, they attacked the Bookmarks bookshop. And this, I'm sorry to say, is part of a pattern. This is the pattern which is being dictated by and led by Donald Trump, the president, and has been taken up across many parts of Europe and indeed in this country. And the release of Tommy Robinson has added focus to their message of racial hatred, Islamophobia and anti-Semitism.
But there they were, outside, filming themselves, geniuses, criminal masterminds, film themselves doing the crime, put it on Facebook. Legends. In their red baseball caps, make Britain great again, because what is more British than baseball? Brilliant, again, amazing, just doing amazing. And then when they get in the shop, of course, they're ranting about abortion, they're ranting about anti-Semitism. Now, lads, I don't want to be funny, I'm not saying they've forgotten their history, but lads, anti-Semitism, that was kind of your breakthrough thing. That was kind of your old school beats. Like, that's where you started. What are you doing? I'm just so confused. They're confused. Fortunately, they did film it though, because we had some journalists, I'm going to go journalists, even though I am a member of the NUJ, saying it didn't happen. Never happened, definitely didn't happen. Such a strange political climate that we live in now. What they also did, wonderfully, and thank you fascists, because the only good fascists, well, there's 2 types of good fascists, and one of them is a really incompetent fascist. And what they did so brilliantly was to underestimate the left. Not that everybody here will be from the left, just decent people who don't like Nazis, well done. But they probably thought, well, the left, they're always fighting amongst ourselves, and that's wrong. We never do that. That's like that literally never happened. We do that a bit in the off-season, but that's, it's to keep match fit, so that when the real threat comes, we know it. Fighting fascists is in our blood. We've done it before. We are more than ready. I've dusted off my old no pass around badge, folks. We are more than ready to do it again. And it's not just the left, it's so important to remember the way we fought fascists in the past has not just been the organised left, it has been the organised people, the extraordinary, ordinary people of this country. And I want to talk a little bit about Cable Street. You will all, I assume, know about Cable Street in October 36, when the people of London turned back Mosley and his mob of black shirts. But the important thing about that is it wasn't one day. The black shirts had been going there for 4 years. In fact, Cable Street was their 4th birthday party. It was their little march to celebrate their 4th anniversary. Didn't go too well. No cake at the end of that one, sadly for them. But we, the people of this country, people from the Jewish communities, ordinary school children, men, women, had been out confronting these bastards everywhere they met. And they met for months and years, in the East End particularly, because there were so many Jewish neighbourhoods, just to intimidate people. These are terrorists. They were wearing uniforms. They were assembling en masse outside Jewish areas. And what the left and the citizens did was to assemble in parallel to them, literally alongside them, to show people that they were not alone, that they would not be intimidated, and this is what you have to do. You have to confront them with huge numbers, wherever you are, wherever you go. They used to chalk no passaran and anti-fascist slogans all over the pavement. I'm looking for some chalk, I'm sure my son's got some somewhere. I think we should start doing that again. And I want to read some of the recollections of people who were at Cable Street on that day. Willie Myers was very young, he was a schoolboy at the time, and he said, yes, I was frightened, don't get me wrong, but I was so wired, I had to be there. When I heard Mosley saying, Britain for the British and we're going to get rid of the Yids, it felt like a personal attack. But on Cable Street, everyone was there. Not just Jews, but Irish people, dockers, trade unionists. We all sensed it was an important day in history. We'd already seen Mussolini, Hitler, Franco come to power. We didn't want to be next. And when they arrived at Gardener's Corner, there was a huge, huge crowd, estimates up around 200 and 300,000, blocking the path of the fascists. But a massive police presence as well, and don't forget the police were there to provide an escort to Mosley and his fascists, which is nice, isn't it? And the police were extremely violent too. They were beating people up, they were sexually assaulting women because there were numbers of women there as well. But they set up barricades, people overturned their lorries, lorry drivers pulled up, overturned their lorries and walked off. Bus drivers stopped their buses, took the keys out and walked off, barricading the fascists, keeping them out of Cable Street. People threw marbles on the pavement. What I particularly like about that is that the Young Communist League, who were very active at Cable Street, had offices in a lemonade factory. Lemonade bottles back in the day, young people, you won't know this, had marbles as stoppers, but not for long, because I'm afraid a lot of bottlers died for the cause on that day at Cable Street. Phil Puritan, who was a communist organiser, remembers one of the young Jewish women who fought back so bravely on that day, and other women as well, housewives, as they're often called, in other words, women living in houses. It was a long cable street that from the roofs and upper floors, people, ordinary housewives, elderly women too, were throwing down milk bottles and other weapons and all kinds of refuse onto the police. They were emptying their slop buckets, and probably worse, onto the police, because they could see the police assaulting women. They particularly sexually targeted women, ripped off their clothes, ripped off their blouses. But women were outside too, fighting in the streets. Here's Joyce Goodman, who said the police were just hitting everyone. There were women going down under the police hooves. Jack Shaw saw a young Jewish woman confronted by a policeman in the police station. There were a lot of arrests made, at least 8 women amongst them, who raised his truncheon in her face, and she said, I am not scared of you, and faced him down. He didn't assault her, he called her a Jewish bitch and threw her in a cell, but he didn't assault her, she stood up to him. Just one of many women who were there on the day. I like Charlie Goodman. He was 16, brutally beaten and attacked by the police because he climbed up a lamppost to urge the crowd on, saying, don't be yellow bellies, forward, we are winning, 16 years old. And later, I love this anecdote, he married a woman who was there, who was 12 at the time, who bumped into him 4 years later and went, were you that nutcase up the lamppost? And he said, yes, and she said, well then I knew he was for me. And they got married. Love on the picket lines, brilliant. Angela Davis's mother Millie was one of the many Jewish young women who were told by their religious parents not to go out and join the demonstration, but still did. And her daughter remembered the girls all went out with pepper pots in their coat pockets to throw pepper into the faces of the fascists. They were prepared to literally do battle with them. Alice Hitchens was 17 and remembered just the incredible solidarity that was there. The elation in the crowd that so many people were present. The dockers from Limehouse and Poplar, to my surprise, because they had a reputation for being anti-Semitic. Cabinet makers from Bethnal Green. Tailors from Whitechapel. So many different accents. Miners from Wales, communists for all over Britain. They shall not pass was on everyone's lips. And the sheer scale of numbers meant the fascists could not pass. They could not get past. And even the police who were on their side had to tell them to F off, basically. They were completely defeated. They had to turn tails and go. So important. Changed the history of fascism in this country. It's impossible not to be nostalgic about Cable Street. It is one of my favourite bits of British history. It is just wonderful for the unity. But it's not something that's in the past anymore, is it? It is here, it is now, we have to do it again. We have lessons from history, which is fortunate, but we have to fight again. I would personally call for some kind of organisation to do that. I don't care who sets it up, this is no time to be sectarian. But don't forget the women this time. Don't forget that women, those are the, we are racist. A lot older than I was in my first anti-fascist demo. Like, I am a mum, not a ninja. I will probably bring you all a packed lunch to the barricades. But regardless, I am ready to kick some fascist ass. Literally and metaphorically. Nazis, you have pissed off the mum block. You are all grounded.
There is now a big movement and feeling on the left that we need to have a broad and united response to the challenge of the Nazis and the hard right. I think this is to be welcomed, and that what we in Stand Up to Racism, Love Music, Hate Racism and Unite Against Fascism have tried to do in our modest way is to provide focus of opposition. So to get 3,000 or 4,000 people out against Tommy Robinson a few weeks ago was a real step forward. To demonstrate against Boris Johnson last night was another indication of what we try and do. And up and down the country over the last few months, we have been highly active in trying to mobilise people. But to be honest, that is not enough. We will need everybody we can get over the coming months and years, and this is what Stand Up to Racism and associated organisations are completely committed to.
The AFD leader, one of the AFD leaders inside Germany, know what he said? He said the attack that tried to kill Hitler was a traitorous attack on all of us, and that shouldn't have happened. But the problem is he's speaking as an MP inside the Bundesrat. We've seen Nazis all over Europe begin to grow. I tell you what the left have to do. We have to unite. Yes. Louis said something before. Unity is really easy when you unite with a friend. It's so easy. You're my friend. I love you. Yeah? I tell you what unity is. It's when you unite with people you don't like. That's the truth. I don't actually like you, right? But when you can face with an enemy, I will join with you and fold hands. I'm going to carry on an argument with you because I don't agree with you. But we have to have unity first. If we don't have unity, I think we're going to face a tremendous disaster. I'm here because black and white united and fought. We fought in Lewisham and we won. I tell you, we fought at Welling when they had the BNP headquarters and we won. I don't believe it's automatic that we'll win. But I tell you what's automatic is that we're going to fight. And at the heart of that will be Stand Up to Racism, will be Love Music, but more importantly, it'll be millions of us, because we stand, with our tide of history depends about how hard we fight and how determined we are. I don't believe we can ever trust the Boris Johnsons. Ever. Ever, ever, ever. How can a public schoolboy from Eton start telling us how to organise the words? I've got to shut up. I've got to shut up. But I tell you what, I'll never shut up against the Nazis, and I'll never shut up against the racists. Let's have unity. Organise and defeat the right.
The success of the Anti-Nazi League in turning back the National Front was achieved through uniting with many people who couldn't agree with each other over other political issues, but were totally clear and committed in fighting the Nazis. That's what defeated the National Front in the 1970s, and that's what defeated the British National Party in 2010, and indeed knocked back the EDL. The message here is unity in action against the fascists. They shall not pass was the slogan of Cable Street, and that is our slogan today.
We've been here before with Griffin and Tyndall, who did their very best to light and to kindle the fire of fascism in every street. But last time they tried, they faced defeat. Come summer, come winter, wind, frost or rain, we stopped them before and we'll do it again. Whoa.